Welcome back to Dallas, Texas, home of the American Baseball Coaches Association at the Gaylord Hotel. We are so excited to be here with you on Perfect Game TV. This is the 80th edition of ABCA, and we are so happy to have you here on PGTV with us. Day one in the books, and we move on to day two. We have an incredible lineup for you, but before we get to our guests and everyone who's going to be joining us here on stage, I am Danny Wexelman here with Hunter Pence, four-time All-Star, two-time World Series champ. Hunter, welcome to ABCA.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. It's great to be here. It is very exciting. There's so much happening. I had no idea. This is my first time ever at the ABCA, and I got in last night, and I was like, whoa. This is insane. This is a little bit of baseball heaven and that perfect time of year to start getting prepped and excited and amped. And there's so much knowledge here. I'm excited to figure out and find out what all's going on.
How far could you walk before being stopped by someone you knew, a coach who knew you, someone who wanted to talk to you, maybe an autograph or two? How far?
No autographs at all, but about 2 steps.
Yeah.
You know, it's been the Savannah Bananas guys were here, and I actually ran into he used to be a young kid when I played with the Astros. He was a really big fan. He's now a college coach, and it was like I was like, what? Like, so there's a lot of people in the baseball world. It seems like this massive world, but it also somehow seems small at some regards, but ran into Donnie Ecker this morning, ran into Eric Burns. There's just so many legends and so many guys that, throughout the baseball life you just run into in all sorts of weird and wild ways. But it's a lot of good people and a lot of people that I am connected to.
I think that's what makes it so special, is that you really can't go that far. You look out and the coaches and anyone who's in the baseball community is flooding in. The trade show is just steps away from where we're set up here at the Gaylord. And it's people from your past. It's people who want to get to know you. But every weird and wild connection, sometimes you've never met them and they say, but I know your coach, or I watched you play, or I watched you do this. Like, it's so special, and what a great way to start the year other than getting to talk baseball, right, and just kind of kick everything off for everybody here. And there's, by the way, did you know 8,000 coaches and members of the baseball community here?
I did not. I thought it was 7,000. So my bad. Of course, we're in Dallas, Texas. It's got to be bigger. 8,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is wild. And there's so much knowledge to be shared, so much to learn. There was already great conversations with people I didn't even know in the coffee line, because we all know we're here for baseball. And, we started off with
you got 2.
I don't think they have enough coffee for what 8,000 baseball minds are going to be putting together here in the morning. So very excited for that. And that is insane. I got to see what the floor has to offer, though.
The floor is going to be awesome. There are so many cool merchandise items, swag items. The technology is insane because our sport is growing, right?
The technology, I'm excited to see that. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's going to be, I feel like you're going to be overwhelmed, but in a really good way, getting to see all of that. Really quick, I want to share with everybody our morning lineup with Hunter and I anyway. Kicking things off, Tracy Smith, the head coach of Michigan, will join us here in just a few moments. Todd Fitzgerald of Stoneman Douglas, of course, Chan Brown at Parkview, Jim Ousting, Oustinger's Baseball, and Jeff Petty of the Canes is going to be with us this morning. And then Darren's going to take over for the afternoon. We're here all day on Perfect Game TV. Day one, by the way, you can go back. It's on our website on Perfect Game or on the app. You can go back and watch all day from yesterday, which was a huge day, by the way. I know you got in this morning, but anyone or anything you're looking forward to today?
I mean, a little bit of all of them. Obviously, I've talked to Tracy Smith several times. He's exciting, and we're going to have him on first. But I think for me, the one link that I'm not as connected to as much is the high school and the youth transitioning to college and pro ball. It's going to be exciting to talk to a lot of the people who are at the helms of some of these great organizations that are, training a lot of the elite athletes that are going to transition, and just see what's going on, the state of the game there. I think there's a lot to gain and grow. It's like, what's going right? It's evolved a lot since I was in high school. So, I hate to date myself, but it was a long time ago. Perfect Game was just starting, and now it's this massive thing, and I'm watching my nephews. So I'm going to be excited to dive into what they see, what's going on, and how we can improve from here, and what's going right.
That's actually something I was hoping you and I were going to have a chance to get into because it has changed so much. But what I have found, and I'm sure you have too, is that the youth game is more important than ever. And the people who are running the organizations and the places that these kids are going and the facilities, right, and the way that they train and the way they fuel their bodies has changed so much. But it's never been more important because we're seeing now, you're seeing guys either drafted out of high school or college, and they're making their debuts that same year. That's not an accident. That is on purpose with how the game has evolved.
Absolutely. I do think that we're in the information age, right? Like, so when I was coming up, there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram, there was no social media at all. So, like, there was a lot of secrets in baseball. But now, in the information age, everyone is kind of sharing, and so the game has been elevated. The players have the access to the knowledge of the greatest minds in the sport, and it's constantly still growing. I think I found this out through doing the Perfect Game College show every week for the last 3 years. That a lot of times the college and the youth sports are sometimes even ahead of the major leagues. It's like, it's not necessarily that you're just the best because you're here. And so some of these, there's great minds thinking everywhere. The motor preferences is something that really I'm excited about, because there was obviously the swing plane and matching planes, which is typically, I don't want to get too technical, but short, too long through the baseball. But how do we do that best? The biomechanics. But now there's actually brain preferences. And these high school kids are, like you said, the best players are playing the best players because there's different levels, which is how I think it should be. So if you're really good, you play against the really best, and that makes them all better. Versus, like, sometimes you'd have the best kid and the worst teams or whatever, and there'd be these blowout games, which causes a lot of, it's not necessarily. So I think that streamlining of, like, you're at a level, you can work your way up or down, and I think that the best players playing the best players with the best information, they come, if you have done the work, it's on you as a kid to go and do the research and like, all of that is out there. They're coming ready, the ones that love it.
We're going to get into more of that. I am very excited. Do not go anywhere. Day 2 here in Dallas, Texas at the ABCA. We're going to elevate our game coming up. Michigan head coach Tracy Smith on the other side.
Oh, yeah. Wait for this one.
Stephanie Wexelman, and welcome in to the Gaylord. We are so excited to have you, whether you are with us here on the floor right next to the trade show or you are watching at home. I'm with Hunter Pence, my co-host this afternoon, and we are now joined by Michigan head coach Tracy Smith. Welcome to the set, Coach.
Well, thanks for having me. Why don't I get one of those cool mics like you guys?
The Diva mic.
It takes a long time to put on.
All right.
A long time. But you might have a little bit easier. My hair definitely got in the way. You might have a...
My hair's not going to get in the way.
It's not going to get in the way.
Those are the headphones I wear on the show. You know, usually when I'm interviewing you on the PG College baseball show, I got the airport traffic control. You know, that's the way I like it.
Well, thank you for having me, regardless of what mic I've got.
You look fabulous. We're so happy to have you here. So we were just talking before we started. You've been to 28 or so.
Ish.
Ish.
Yeah.
Ish. It's a not definite number, but at least you've been coming to this for 2+ decades. What do you love about coming here?
Well, we were just talking off set out there. I just love catching up with people. You know, you see a lot of your friends and coaches in the profession when you're competing and you don't have a lot of time to talk. I have to confess, I don't go to many of the presentations, but I try to just catch up and just connect with guys and talk ideas and stuff like that. But you can always learn something, so that growth mindset, this is a great place to be.
We talk about that a lot, too, and Hunter and I were saying, you know, you can't really walk that far without seeing somebody that you know or someone who wants to talk to you. I'd imagine way back when you first started to come, you were getting a lot of really big ideas, and maybe you were really inspired. Was there a person that you remember meeting that you were excited to meet, maybe a little starstruck?
Well, yeah, I can't remember where, this was early on, but I just remember Tommy Lasorda eating breakfast one day, and I was like sitting there going, there's Tommy Lasorda right there, you know, and Mike Martin, I remember one time, and this was really early in my career, watching him walk around, I was like, golly, how cool is that guy right there, you know? So, no, this is a special time, and like I say, it's time to just catch up and be human beings, too, and not just talk baseball.
Great point.
Absolutely. I think you're right about that. There's so many just people that within the game that you're not necessarily expecting to see. This is my first year. Your 28th year, my first.
This
so
is
I had
first year.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was getting into, and I was like, "Whoa, this is a really big deal." And I like to ask someone like you, Tracy, who's done it for so long and been here to 28 of them. And you mentioned growth mindset. This is something that I love. It's like, what is the new thing, or how can I look at the game differently? Throughout the years, what are some of the greatest presentations? And you say you don't go as much anymore. I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot of it. But what are some of the greatest things you've learned at the convention here?
Well, that's a great question. You're going to throw me a curveball there. But no, I mean, I like to – this game's been around a long time. I mean, I remember, you know, you as a player, I think you probably be referred to as that kind of throwback, you know, guy that played old school. So this game – there's only so many ways, I think, that you can teach that fundamental skill. So what I always try to do, or at least the ones that are most interesting to me, are some where someone could add a little something different, you know. And I saw, and I'm not going to say them right now because I don't want to insult anybody, but I went through the little program, and I'm like, okay, I want to hear that guy talk about how you turn a double play or how you know, the pitching or whatever. So just over the years, it's just various ones. And, again, you could sit there for 40 minutes, and if you take out something that maybe just one thing, you're going to be that much better. So, but this is the opportunity to do it because there's some pretty talented people out there.
Yeah, but there's also what I've found is there can be too much. I think, you know, so Young Hunter came out when there was not as much information, and I wanted to interview every one of the best hitters. I took Berkman, I took Biggio, I took Carlos Lee, Barry Bonds went to lunch with me. I'd go, and I found out they all do it differently. And throughout my career, it was like this big, you know, it was like curveball, four-seamer, and then it was like swing down, and then it became sinker slider, and they were like swing up. So it goes up, down, inside out. It's hard to really get the answer to the.
Well, it's a great. I think the challenge, not the challenge. I think the thing that the tendency would be, and this was early in the career for me, is you go and you see something that somebody's instituted and done for a long time, and then you go back and you try to rush that thing in at the break. You still have to be yourself, and you said it. Like, there's different ways. So if you can take one or two things that maybe help or add to your philosophy, then it's a win for coming here, and all the meals you get to have too. So
yeah.
There's a lot of good meals.
Is that right?
I wanted to follow up really quick on that because I and we were talking about this earlier, is that everyone is learning at a faster pace, it feels like, at the youth level and in high school, even in middle school right now. And everything is better, right? The nutrition, the facilities, the information, the technology. So when you get a kid on campus and maybe they are stuck in their way or they've been doing the same thing and you say, well, what about this? How do you get them to buy in to something that they haven't done and might intimidate them?
Another great question. So back to the 28 years of doing this, you're exactly right. It's different. And so on the other side, and I'm saying the coaching side, you have to evolve too and understand how they're learning nowadays. Everyone has a trainer to swing and run, and I always joke around and go to the bathroom. I mean, there's a trainer for everything. So you have to understand that and understand the world they're coming in. And you can either dig your heels in and, I say get old school on them, or you can kind of meet them in the middle with that. So that's what we try to do is recognize, what system they've been coming from, try to stay current on our end and different techniques. And you said the nutrition. I mean, that wasn't something that we were, I don't know how old you are, but I'm old. We didn't even talk about nutrition. Popcorn maybe, but just all of that stuff. But it's a part of who we are, and it's a part of the game now, and you have to recognize that and adapt.
Absolutely. It does make a difference, we think. We never know. I remember the first time I had a kale salad in a Major League clubhouse, everyone looked at me like I was this big weirdo. They're like, "What are you a horse?" And I was like, "I don't know. Greens are healthy for you,
Greens
maybe.
are good.
Superfood is what they told me."
Yeah.
Who knows? It's still always kind of that riddle of baseball, the question that doesn't necessarily have an exact answer. This hitter might want to swing up, this hitter might want to swing down. But I want to jump to the elevation that your football team has probably brought in and the charge that your baseball team is feeling. What's it like on campus right now? And I mean, I don't care who you are. If you're walking around that city and you got this going on, it's got to feel some kind of way.
Well, again, I'm coming from a unique perspective because I coached in that league for 11 years and rooted against the big Go Blue. But it is fun. It is absolutely incredible. And I was at IU for a while, so it was on the basketball side. And, but now seeing, and I don't want to disrespect any of the schools I've been to, but to be at a really good football school makes it fun. Because for us, the recruiting and all the things that you can tie into it are awesome. And, yes, I'm leaving from here, and I'm going to head down and catch some of that vibe there in Houston, too. So it's
awesome.
fun.
So you have felt it. Danny, let me get at least one more
please.
here. Let's talk a little bit about some of your players. I know we hit up on them a little bit. Mitch Voigt, Jonathan Kim, the fall, the spring, how everything's kind of coming together for Michigan baseball in your eyes?
Well, I'm sure you'll talk about this at some point today, but portal and NIL and all the things that are now in our game, it's just an interesting roster construction nowadays. And you referenced those two individuals right there. Mitch and Jonathan were freshmen that, quite frankly, and I'll be honest, we didn't recruit them, when the transition of coming in, but just really, really solid players. But I like our team. I think positionally, the portal was good. It's an old man's game now, and what it has done, I think, on the college side is allowed people to slow down a little bit because now you don't have to guess. You don't have to, I don't want to say guess, but you don't have to take as big a risk in the high school. So it's a balance, but I like this team, and I'm excited about, ask me in mid-March, and I'll have a better idea of what's going on.
That's true.
I'm sure we will, too. We appreciate all the time that you give us on our various shows and whatnot. I wanted to go back to Harbaugh really quick. I can't help myself here. Have you had a chance to have conversations with him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I've known the Harbaugh family prior to coming there. So.
That's amazing. So I just love to know, because obviously I'm sure you've got some notes and you take some things and maybe you apply them to your team. What are some of those things maybe?
If you try to follow Jim's line of thinking, you're going to be all
Yeah.
What I love about Jim is he's Jim. He's different, he's quirky, but you can see and you hear it in his players. They love him. And I think that's part of it. So to try to get that bond with your players like he does is just be a regular human being, and albeit a little bit different here and there. There's nothing wrong with that. So we have actually two guys. Last year we had two guys who were both dual football, baseball. And he works great with that. So I'd compliment him and his staff for working with us on that.
Is there something that you do at Michigan to kind of raise the level of maybe the championship play or the growth mindset or the mental side of your game that works so well across all the sports? Yeah,
we work on the mental part of that. That's back to the newness and things that we didn't talk about in the old days, but that's a big part of it. But I don't want to say there's not a lot of building on Michigan because that program and the success that has been around there for a long time, you just try to add to it. So I don't want to sit here and say it was in a pretty good spot before we got there, and we're going to continue to try to do that as well.
That's awesome.
This is a question that kind of sparks from that, and you never want to reinvent the wheel. I do think that the next wave is kind of I think the mental game is like the biggest improvement we can do because physics is physics and the game is the game, spin, whatever. And they all, everyone's trying to hit the ball harder, but I think exit velo gets in the way. But let's go back to does like the same people that work the mental side of the game for the football team work with your baseball team? Do y'all, because I'm sure y'all share like a similar.
Well,
group.
there's a gentleman, Scott Pelton, from our side that works with. He'd worked in the NFL and he works with CEOs globally. But you go back to it, and there's coaches out here. At the end of the game, when you get a loss or something, you're like, gosh darn it, that was just a silly play. Why did we do that? Well, we need to work on it. So we actually write that into our practice every single day, our mental training that we do. Our quarterback at Michigan's getting a lot of publicity now as he sits and he does his meditation and stuff. And
the
McCarthy.
grounding.
Yeah. So we do that every single day before we practice.
That's awesome.
Wow. Oh, I have seen him do that. And I think there's something to it. And like you said, maybe it wasn't something that we talked about even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Nobody was taking their shoes off and standing in the grass and benefiting from that. But obviously, when you see J.J. McCarthy do that, and you see he's going to the national championship game, you start to think, well, maybe there is something to that. Do you guys have, are there – go ahead.
Well, Tyler Graham, we hired him as at Oregon State, and really good job, out west. And Pat Casey, a good buddy of mine, and very successful. And that's a big part of Tyler's. He introduced that to our program, and really, because I was kind of still old school, like, okay, I know it's important, but I really don't understand the how. He's put the how behind it with our players, and we utilize that and value it. And I'll be truthful. Last year I was kind of in and out with it, but this year I said it's so important. Like, we literally write that in, dedicate time daily to that, just like we would on field and ground balls and throwing bullpens and hitting.
So you dedicate time for the mental game, or walking barefoot in the grass and meditating?
We write it in, and the guys will meditate. The guys will meditate before, with the idea of teaching them that they will do that stuff on their own. And it's just, and a lot of it is just the calming and reset, because there's a lot of negativity in the game, and it's how you handle that stuff, and you got to be able to do that in real time. And I'm a believer now, so I'll just say that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that the game has changed to that, because it was really kind of looked down upon. And I saw the transition in the major leagues where, it was like you need to be working the second you get here. And then all of a sudden they started making sleep rooms. They started making places where you could go and visualize, and they started encouraging you to go and do that. And for me personally, I felt a major benefit when I did meditate and I had a consistent mental practice. And it's hard to science that, but I can just give you my experience, and it was a big difference in if I had consistent meditation, mental work, and my play. If I reflect on the years that I did that more than I did physical work, 100% better. So it's cool that that's going into our college athletes. I think it's a life skill that's going to help you succeed in not only baseball, but in anything, and just it centers you and brings balance. I don't know how, but I'm so glad that you're doing that. I did have one more question, and my brother had mentioned this because he has 3 young boys that are playing youth baseball, and he talks about how, and I mentioned it briefly, exit velo. And I'm sure you have Rapsodo in your. I don't even know how they measure that these days, but he's saying that they're disproving that. And for me, I asked Willie Mays, I was like, what's the furthest? This is with the Giants. They'd have this sit around. And I was like, what's the furthest home run you hit? Because young me just wanted to throw it as hard as I could and hit it as far as I can. And Willie laughed at me. He's like, I just wanted it to go one row over the fence. Yeah. This is one of the greatest players of all time. It's like, don't matter how far you hit it, don't hit it too hard, because then you're going to be swinging too hard. Yeah. And so anyway, what are kind of your thoughts on exit velo versus a swing plane that creates hits, line drives?
Well, I'm still back to that. I'm in the middle. I think some of that stuff's important, maybe from a teaching standpoint. You're trying to build strength and all, but still, it's about producing and getting hits and competing. You can have great exit velo, but if you can't put the ball in play when it matters in the game, then what are we talking about? And so it drives me crazy. I get videos, prospects will saying it'll be swinging off a tee, which is cool, or guys doing a pull down, running and throwing it into a net. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but don't forget, this still is a game about competition. And again, you know that as well, because if I were to break your swing down,
it was ugly.
Well, it was different.
It was unique.
But it was productive, and at the end of the day, you played a long time, and that's what I think athletes should be striving for.
That's a great answer. Tracy, we are so happy to have you here with us. Thank you for giving us some time.
Oh, this is great. Thank you. I might steal one of those coffees on the way.
Yeah, me too.
I got an extra one.
Yes, lots of coffee to fuel us. Tracy Smith, head coach for Michigan's program. Stay with us, Hunter Pence, Danny Wexelman. On the other side, Stoneman Douglas, head coach Todd Fitzgerald. You are watching Perfect Game TV and, a special guest on the other side. We'll be back.
I never let myself believe that I was gonna be in the big leagues. I always worked for it until I achieved it. Back in Puerto Rico, I remember my dad would hit me ground balls from the top of the hill. That forced me to always move my feet. There were no limits to where I could go, so I play with no limits.
One of our favorites, a baseball lifer, Clint Hurdle. Darren?
So it's obvious, right? You come to an event like this and you connect. It's about friendships, about relationships. And this guy is here, legendary manager Clint Hurdle, a friend to the amateur game. Happy New Year, my friend. How are you?
Darren, I'm well. Happy New Year to you and your family, man. I miss you.
I miss you too. I really do. I want a product place because if I'm coming into your house here, I need to know who you're representing. Tell me a little bit. Your face is on the wall here. Your good-looking faces here. What are we doing here at Bat Around?
Our small group is exploding. We got our kid legs up and running. We've gamified batting practice. We've taken some new school technology, and we've probably put a hybrid model together with some old school skills. And we're partnered up with Hit Tracks to get into hitting facilities, colleges, high schools, any program that's got a Hit Tracks we pair up with, and we actually help you play a game of BP. And probably the coolest part is the Hitting Legends Council, the guys that helped me create the 6 rounds that we have in place. One of them you know very well, Luis Gonzalez,
Yep.
Tino Martinez, Freddie McGriff, Todd Helton, Matt Holliday, Travis Hafner, Darnell Coles,
I've heard of all of them.
Juan Pierre, but maybe my favorite is David Eckstein, because we got all sizes. It's not just about slug homers. It's about hitting the ball hard, hitting the ball pitched where metrics involved. We have a BAM system that's set up on how we evaluate the kids called the Bat Around metric. And when you say it, you got to go, bam. You got to say it like that. But we're having a blast with it. We are going to we're going to have an exhibition today at the Hit Tracks cage at 1 o'clock, and then later this afternoon around 4:30. And we're just going to get some random people in there and play it because the game explains itself. Yeah. So we're up and running. We love it. The feedback has been very good. Now we're just trying to get the exposure and some foot traffic to play it.
As a Florida guy, you look kind of sassy in that vest. I got to admit. Can you get me one of those?
I can.
Nice. That's all I care about.
You're on the inner circle.
You are on the inner circle with young athletes, and it's had to be fun for you the last couple of years. They've been lucky to be around you in the room when players are invited to be PG All-Americans. They get all the logistics, which to me is boring. My apologies. But then they get your speech. How rewarding has it been for you to interact with the future of the game, not when they're big leaguers, when you used to get them, but when they're 15 to 18?
You know, it has been one of the best things that has happened for me and to me. And it's been a large part of my growth outside of Major League Baseball, my experience that I was, 45 years I was in uniform. And then I took 2 years off, failed at retirement. PG brought me back to start with, and then the Rockies brought me back. But the amateur game, I had no clue. And to meet these young men where they are at as early as 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, the incredible skill sets they have, but more or less just they're so young. The energy level is off the charts. They ask good questions. And, I've been fortunate that I've got to kind of rub elbows with some of the best players we have, but also just some of the kids that are just doing their thing and are going to go to a Division III school, are going to go to a Division II school. They're going to go to a JUCO and play ball. The deeper blessing is spending time with the parents, because my mom and dad sat in that seat they're in when they come to the showcase, back in 1974. And a lot has changed and a lot's still similar. Do good in school, it'll give you more options.
I hear that everywhere.
Do good in school, get good grades, pay attention. When you play the game of baseball, work your backside off early so you can actually play the game when it's game time, because a lot of kids got it opposite. They play at practice and they work their backsides off during the game. So the kids have been refreshing for me. The staff that we have, the coaches, has been very entertaining because they care. And the quality of time spent like with Jared Goodwin and you. I'm still learning. Jimmy Jenks, come on. None better than Jimmy. So it's really been a nice opportunity and avenue for me to grow. But I love the amateur game now. I love what's going on.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Hey, by the way, my producer Jason is here. Am I taking it to break or sending it back to this? Taking it to break. And can I ask one more question or I got to go? One more hard-hitting question. Your name was floated a lot around, not the amateur game, but the big leagues this winter. And it was exciting because you've earned it with all the success you've had. Does that itch still want to be scratched? Would you want to get in the big league dugout again?
There was a part of me that 99% the door was closed, but I'm not going to stand in God's way. If there's a plan and an opportunity. And Wash and I go way back. People don't know how far back Ron Wash and I go back. 30-some years ago, he was my coach in the Met system. And then I was his coach in Texas. So the opportunity presented itself, and I tell you, the itch got a little bigger. And we scratched it a little bit harder. At the end of the day, we didn't figure it out. The Angels and I weren't able to figure it out. But my wife had put it in best context. Carla put it in the best context after all the interviews, the conversations, talking with players that had been there, talking with some of the minor league people, the scouts. She goes, how did it feel to be pretty again? And I said, well, it was kind of weird. I don't know if that's the term I would have used. But I do. It's always nice to know that major league people like Ron Washington think highly of enough of you to consider you for an opportunity. So I would not say never. That's
amazing. It's amazing. Congratulations on where you're at. We're better because we've been around you the last couple of years, man.
I'm very fortunate to be with PG. And I told you earlier, the good news is I'll be back again in 2024. I'm looking forward to it.
And when we come back, thank you, Clint Hurdle. When we come back, and by the way, it's Bat Around. When we come back, Todd Fitzgerald, the legendary coach of Stoneman Douglas. You want to talk about producing major leaguers. He's doing it every single year, and he wins the state championship in Florida. Last time I heard, it's a pretty big state. It's hard to do. Danny Hunter, Stoneman Douglas representative. When we come back, right here at the ABCA.
I need all the wins. Yeah. Ain't no else, gotta get a no call and quits. Yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard it gets. Yeah. Better move out the way, cause I'm coming with hard. hits. My head is as hard as a brick, but I'm harder than all of this. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
I feel like Mike, Jordan, give me the rock and I'm scoring. Hey, came from the bottom, that's scoring. I swore that I'm up for the sun in the morning. I told him this ain't a game.
Stoneman Douglas head coach Todd Fitzgerald. I'm joined, of course, by co-host Hunter Pence over here. And welcome to the show. Welcome to the set.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's an honor. So I really appreciate connecting with you again after last year. We did this, and just being asked to come back and do it again means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, congratulations. I asked you before we started, are you tired of winning your third straight national championship? Congratulations.
Thank you. No, winning never gets old. Hunter, I'm sure you can attest to that. So, yeah, it never gets old winning. So hopefully we keep it going for a while.
Yeah, I hope so too. You just saw Jay Johnson speak. He was the headliner this morning. What did he say? Fill us in. I was bummed to miss it.
Well, to be honest with you, like, just the way he runs his program and the expectations that he has and the things that he does to elevate and to have them as the number one team, college baseball team, best team in the land and the country. His philosophy and a lot of the things that he was talking about today, we on a smaller scale, I try and implement into our high school program. So it's a lot of similar things that he was saying, but obviously it's more advanced that he was talking about. So I feel like we're on the right path of doing things the right way. And I have so much respect for Coach Johnson. He's a really good person, and he'll always take the time to have conversation with you. He won't, he doesn't walk by you, or, and he'll spend time with you and talk baseball as long as you want. So it's really, really positive.
And real quick, Hunter, just the importance, you were talking about how important it is to learn, to grow, to go to these clinics.
Right.
I mean, the speakers are incredible. The list of those panelists and the people who are up there speaking are so great. What do you take from maybe what Coach Johnson said and try to apply this season?
Well, I think number one is just how you prepare and how you want your culture to be, because your culture is a standard, right? Like, you have a standard of excellence that you set for your entire program. And every year you get new kids that come in, kids graduate. So basically, those kids that come in, now their legacy has got to be, how do you want to leave your legacy? Well, as a young teenager today, it's hard, and it's hard raising young kids today because of the whole social media, the phones and all that. So there's a lot of distraction. So you got to try and keep them focused, keep them grounded, and keep their eyes on the prize. And, we want to try and develop them for the next level of their life. And not only just baseball, but we want to prepare them for life as well, because they're going to be husbands, they're going to be fathers, they're going to be business owners, but be the best that you can be at whatever it is that you're doing.
Wow. Yeah, you touched on so much right there. There's a lot to unpack. 3 straight championships is kind of insane in and of itself. But let's talk culture, because you mentioned that right there. Right. What is that culture, and how do you create it? And for me, it's like each time you win, I feel like it's harder to win again, because a lot of times you win and you think you've made it. And you are like, I got to keep growing. You've won 3 in a row, and you're still looking to improve and to implement what Jay Johnson did. Right. What is that culture and that you're trying to create, and how is it adapted?
Well, I think the culture starts at the top, right? So it's the attitude and the expectations you have for your program, and these are the way that we are going to do things. So you set a standard, and sometimes you have to break it down like soup to nuts to like. Some kids, like, they'll walk by the field, they'll see a piece of trash on the ground, and they won't pick it up. Well, stop, pick up the trash. Like, it's just being a good person, being humble in everything that you do, having a great attitude, being positive every day, have enthusiasm. Every morning when you get out of bed, before your feet touch the ground, you have a choice. And you have a choice to make it a great day, or you have a choice to go the other way. And we talk about that with our guys all the time. And you create that culture there. Your teammates create culture. You have teammates that police the team as well, not always hearing from the head guy. And we also bring in, like, police officers. I bring in former players, alumni to speak, veterans to speak to our guys. So it's more than just baseball. It's about life lessons, because baseball, as you know, teaches you so many life lessons. And it's the greatest game ever.
It's beautiful, and this is like when you reflect on a baseball career, coaching or whatever, right. It is the relationships, it is the community, right. It is the police officers, it is the picking up of trash and the little people you talk to. You don't know who you're impacting right. Day in and day out. Now, I wanted to bring it because we talked a little bit before we got on, what happened at Stoneman Douglas and how that changed you and changed how you coach and how that's impacted, because I think that's a lesson for everyone to hear about.
Well, number one, my son was at this school that day, so it's impactful because you don't know if your kid's all right. I was down at the baseball field, so something happened, and he thought we were having a fire drill. We had a fire drill earlier in the morning, so thought we were having a fire drill, and then as the fire drill supposedly was going on, I opened up the back door of the baseball office, and all these sirens and stuff, so I turned the TV on, and, obviously it was worse than that. So I went home. First thing you did was, you hug your wife and kids and you tell them you love them. But there are far more greater things in this world than winning a baseball game. And for me as a person, it was about what am I going to do to get these guys over the hump, number one. How am I going to lead that? And then what am I going to do to be a positive effect for the rest of the school and the community to try and bring everybody together. So it was hard, but again, it's just made me understand that there's value in everything, and human beings and their value. There is mental health going on, unfortunately, these days, right? And that's a big, big topic. And there would be days before players would come to the field and they'd be all upset, and I'd be like, "Let's go, man, get your stuff together. We got to go," And now it's like one-on-one, bring them. Are you okay? How was your day? And the greatest thing about what we do at our place, every day before our kids go in the locker room, when they come from class, all our coaches sit in the dugout, and they walk by each one of us, and they shake our hands and say, "Coach, how was your day? Coach, how was your day? Coach, how?" And that's just something we've created, over that, just because of that. So there's a lot more that I can go into detail, but, that's another story. So, but yeah, man, it's really made me evolve, and I'm more humble, more relaxed, and kids feed off the coach. So when the coach is relaxed and under control, they're going to be under control under any circumstance. So I think that's really helped me, and unfortunately, tragedy does that sometimes, but it's also been a positive as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that. Like, I think that there's so much within just the human touch, right. Within just how was your day, and like genuine, right. And obviously like you're doing it with 20, 30, 40 kids, right. It was a great day. How was your day? Right. But like when I look at like my career, I won a championship in AA, right. And I had a lot of years that I did not win championships, but you look at like what are the common threads. Right. I won a championship 2 times with the Giants. I won a championship, or I made it to the championship before we left in the Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. Almost every single one of those teams, like I remember in the Dominican, we would huddle up, hands on each other, and like rally together. Like we're gonna do this to get to where we were. And like it was guys that really cared about each other. With the Giants, 2 of our runs, we would all get in, hold hands, and pray together before each game, right. As a group for each other, for the health of even our opponents. And it's a deeper connection. We're learning deeper values within baseball. And so to me, the fact that you saw a huge improvement when you changed from just like you're just stats on a baseball field and like you play the best, you're here, you don't play good, you're on the bench. Like, wow. And how have you seen the players as they move forward, and like has that changed their journey going on? Have they told you? I'm sure you've had conversations.
Funny, last year in the regional championship game, I think we're in the 4th inning. We're playing Columbus High School at home, and this is why you coach, right here. So I'm walking back, 3 outs, we didn't score, whatever. I'm going back to the dugouts, 4th inning. I look in the dugout, and I got 6 former alumni in the dugout on the fence with our guys in uniform. They're not in uniform, but they're in the dugout like Douglas gear on, and they're cheering. And you know, a lot of coaches would be like, guys, we'll see you after the game. You know, I want them in the dugout. Like, they know exactly what our standard is, and they know what we expect. And they're there for those kids and for them to come back. That's why you coach right there. So, you know, when you get invited to weddings and things of that nature, like I said before, years before, it was more about me, you know, and that the selfish side of it, or the young kid side of it, learning. And you learn over the years, and you learn how to evolve, and you learn how to just build those relationships and deal with different what I'm looking for, different personalities on a daily basis. Not everybody has the same personality. So some guys you can get on, some guys you got to pat on the back, and some guys you got to make them feel like they can walk on water. So I think we've done a really good job of that, and we have total buy-in. And last year, man, it was special. It's probably not even the most talented, but the best team probably I've ever had. And I've had some good ones.
You didn't lose the game. You hit more home runs than runs given up.
Yeah, that's crazy. We had 35 home runs. We gave up 33 runs on the year, and we only trailed in a game 3 times all year, and it was only by 1 run, and it was in the first inning.
That's insane.
Like, yeah, and we played a really good schedule. Like, I mean, it was competitive.
Well, I wanted to ask about that because, I mean, just the idea, the power of sports, first of all, right? Like, you're saying not just human beings, but you're also talking about your championship caliber teams and how powerful it was to come together. And I do think those things are connected. I don't think it's a coincidence. And while you never want a tragedy to happen to fuel that, I think it's what you take from it, right? And how do you turn it? How do you use it for good? And your team has done that. But you were undefeated this season. And I often wonder, teams who face adversity, how does that help them? Does that matter? But you didn't lose. And so where did you pull from, maybe if your team was down? Were you ever down? Did you ever trail in a game?
3 times.
3 times. So how do you win a championship having never lost a game?
So over the last few, like the legacy, like our 24 group has been really good. And not only that, the tradition that we've tried to build to that point, but we never talk about who we're playing.
Okay.
We never talk about the next game.
Okay.
We always say you can't be 2-0 unless you're
1-0.
1-0, right? You can't be 1-0 unless you're and that's all I don't prepare for who we're playing. They have to prepare for us, right? So when I know that when we go into game, we are prepared for any situation that can arise, and if we execute it, we're going to be good. So I don't worry about who we're playing. It doesn't matter if we're playing the Yankees or if we're playing the Blues or whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, we're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but fortunately for us last year, it was just a special group of guys. They passed the baton, you know, the next guy up, and there was not one ego in the entire organization from the inside or the outside. And you know, in high school baseball, that doesn't happen. And it was really special. And if it did happen on the outside, it wasn't brought into the inner circle. So our guys, I tell our guys all the time, like, you can do whatever you want outside the fence with your families after the game, but inside, that's our time. So I'm a big practice guy, Hunter. So everything that we do is in practice. Like, I just tell our guys every day before we play, don't make me coach today. That's it. You're prepared. Don't make me coach. All I want to do is this. I want to wave the arm. I want to send you home, right? I got a guy calls pitches. My pitching coach, he calls every pitch of every game. I don't get in his way. You know, and I've been lucky to be around some really good coaches. Rich Hoffman, he was with me for 6 years, and he's all-time winningest coach in the state of Florida. He was my bench coach for many years. And then I've just got a great coaching staff, and we have stability in our coaching staff. And those guys deserve the credit, because without them, I'm nobody. And if you don't surround yourself with good people, you're not. It doesn't matter how good you think you are as a coach. You got to get everybody's buy-in. So I let them coach, and coaches coach, and you know, I'm just really fortunate and blessed to have really good people around me.
During that run, by the way, you earned your 500th career win.
I did.
Congratulations.
My son hit a home run that game too.
Late in the season, your son Devin, right?
Yeah,
yes.
That was cool.
500, I could imagine that you look back, there's some milestones in there. Is there a memorable one more than the other that's more memorable to you? Asking to go back in the memory bank there. I know. 500's a lot.
Yeah, they're not really like probably the milestone ones. I think obviously when we won our first one, and it wasn't at Douglas, it was at American Heritage in 2008, and it was a totally different team. I had Hosmer, Castellanos, Devin Marrero, all on one high school team, Adrian Nieto. So we had over like 300 million on the field, right, at one point. But that team was totally built different. We had like 79 home runs that year. And, so the first one was always about me. And then when I got onto the other ones, it's like, this one's for you. Like, I want this for you. Because you can't take the ring away. Like, you'll have this for the rest of your life. So, and we don't really preach winning state championship. We just preach one day at a time, one pitch at a time, one play at a time. Secure the baseball. Baseball, it doesn't change. With all the analytics, I have no clue what that is. So
that is
I'm just a high school
amazing.
baseball coach, but we get after it, and our kids play hard and they play the game the right way. So Todd, I couldn't be happier for them.
Can I intersect here? Because you've hit some like really key notes to my soul, and I want to dive a little bit more. The fact that you delegate, you trust. It's bigger than just me. Mm-hmm. Like I have to have good people around me. You've surrounded yourself with that. But B, you're like, I love practice. I'm about practice because to me it's like the disciplined, consistent, persistent actions are what lead to greatness on the field.
Correct.
So let's dive in a little bit. Like, what have you learned? Because you're obviously a master at your craft, which is coaching baseball. Right. What have you learned, like, as far as, like, practice to get the most out of these kids? How do you – I want to hear about these practices.
So the number one thing, and in baseball, what's the number one thing? Routine.
Yeah.
And our routine is the same every day. And I know it's hard to believe, but we do the same thing every single. I don't even put a practice plan on the board anymore. Like my kids know, they get to the field, we stretch, we base run. We don't pick up a ball until we do our base run in 15 minutes. We throw, we go on our cuts and relays. We come off the field, we go bunt defense, first and third defense. We'll do pop-up priority. We'll do rundowns. We'll do our special pick plays, and then we'll do position fundamentals. So now when you go in position fundamentals, I have a coach. And I'm lucky enough to have a coach for each position. And the catching position in high school is probably the most neglected because a lot of times you send, hey, go down and throw your bullpen. I'll send you a catcher down. They don't get work in. Well, I have a pitching guy. I have a catching guy. I have an infield guy, Mike Sandoval, Kung Fu Panda's brother, right? He's our infield coach. I got a really good outfield coach. So I can rove, and I do the hitting too with Sandoval and my other coaches. So we all kind of do that together. But we'll do all our defensive work in it for the first hour and a half of practice, and then we'll hit for an hour. We'll hit on the field every day. We'll do our BP routines in the cages, but it's all routine. So the kids know, like, not doing anything different. Now I might structure, obviously, I might change BP different. Like one day we'll do situational hitting. One day we'll do gap to gap. One day we'll do ropes. You got to stay inside the ropes. No hookers down the line. No pull shots. We want to stay in. So just working on that two-strike approach, whatever we're doing in our BP sessions that day. But our routine is exactly the same every day.
You're able to fit that into an hour and a half, all of that defense?
Yeah. Because we've established it over time. And not only we coach our JV too. Like my entire staff coaches JV too. So when those kids go from JV to varsity, there's no new teaching. The language is the same from the bottom to the top. So they just hit the ground running.
There's so much cool stuff here. I don't know how we're doing on time, but
it's championship caliber. We have a few minutes left.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Because I want to just say, so like there's a study on basically like flow state. Like, I would tap into like, how do we get to flow state? And it's like baseball is happening really fast. Like, so it's a kind of an unconscious thing. Well, the science says that the best way to enter flow state more, they don't have an exact way to get there, is to do the same thing over and over so that it becomes unconscious. And it's boring. You think of like Derek Jeter, you think of Tom Brady. These dudes literally did the same exact routine over and over.
Fall in love with boring.
And fall in love with boring.
Yeah.
You're having them go through so in Major League camp, I always thought this was crazy, is we would do all of that like one time. Like one day would be like, today we're going to do pop-up communication. Tomorrow we're going to do first and thirds. The next day, so we only do it like one time in spring training, never see it again, and then you wonder why big league teams fumble a lot. But the fact, I was a huge fan of consistency. Yeah, we've made it to the big league level. We've gone through a lot of these programs. We should know this, but we don't. Unless we do it over and over. And so I think that you just hit something on the head. And there's another thing I have to dive into because you just blew my mind. So I love the routine. You're getting your kids into flow state. Every situation happens. They don't even have to think. They've already done it every day for years.
It's so funny, too, because they're like, punt defense. Come on, can we go 5 minutes?
They're going to complain.
I'm like, dude, we got to. We do it because when it happens, we're ready for it. Now, if we bobble the ball, don't make the play. That's
it's going to happen no matter what.
But you're prepared for the situation. So yeah, we're going to do it.
You can control how you prepare. You can't control results.
And we compete at it too. So.
Yeah.
You know, I'm lucky enough in our program where we're too deep at every position, so we have competition every day at practice. And Jay Johnson hit the nail right on the head earlier. We're talking about the routine. 10,000 hours, I think he was talking about in there. Like
the outliers thing, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's how you become a master.
Yeah, 100%.
So lastly, and this is the concept that blew my mind, Danny, I think you'll be interested in this, is you said we don't prepare for the other team, they prepare for us, we master ourselves.
Right.
That's a way of battle that, or even competition that I've never, because obviously in the major leagues you spend all this time focusing on where are we going to play this, what's this pitcher going to do to us versus which obviously you have to do. How do you? I guess that's the way that you just prepare for yourself is you follow your system and your routine and your culture and you come out and you compete.
Right.
Come and see it because like for instance, I'm going to give you a small story. We had 2 Cy Young pitchers when I was on the Phillies in 2011.
Okay.
Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee.
Right.
Roy Halladay was the day after he pitched in the film room for like 3 hours a day, obviously doing all his stuff. He was the most prepared, knew everything. He knew probably what every hitter, their tendencies were that they didn't even know.
Right.
Cliff Lee was like, my stuff beats your stuff.
Right.
You got to hit me.
Right.
Both Cy Young candidates, 2 completely different ways.
Love that.
I mean, anyway, for me, it's fun concepts to think about, but I love what you're doing. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And how do you make it where you just, is it basically kind of what you just said?
Yeah, I mean, like last year we beat 13 Division I arms last year, right? And it's not that we prepared for those kids because at the end of the day, when the ball leaves the hand, I'm not competing against Nolan Ryan or, I'm competing against a baseball. So the baseball's going to do its thing. You got to understand and see, like, what that baseball and what's his best pitch. In high school, if you don't have a good secondary pitch and you're sitting heater, then you're going to sit and drive the heater, right? Now, if the guy's pitching backwards and he can land the off-speed pitch for a strike early in the game, now okay, you're going to have to grind a little bit today, right? So you're going to have to hunt a pitch in your zone. So all of our kids have a hitting plan, and they all have their own plan. Some guys like the ball up and away, down and in, and it's their pitch, and when you get that pitch, you can't miss it. So I've been fortunate enough to have some really good players, and like I said, I wouldn't be where I am today without them. But I love it, and I love watching them develop, and I think we do a really good job of that. So
we know you're going for 4 straight this year, so we wish you the best of luck, especially your son Devin.
Thank you.
Todd, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thanhanks for having me.
All right, Todd
Appreciate
Fitzgerald of Stoneman Douglas. Do not go anywhere. We're going to be right back on Perfect Game TV. We have Chan Brown from Parkview High School coming up right after the break.
My buddy, he's a legend. He's a good one.
What's going on, guys? I am with Soldier Sports, and they just newly released their Tank BB Core Drop 3. The pop is insane. It's got an incredibly good feel. Feels a little bit like a Voodoo with that balance feel. The hand is great, little flare knob. But we're going to take some swings here, check out some action videos, and see how it tests. 97. 99. So as you can see, I mean, this thing's hot. It's got great feel. I'm really loving it. So go check it out. Soldier Sports US. Let's go.
Being in the wild is best when you're with your family. We do all kinds of different things at camp. Go fish, surf, dive. I think I'll probably be coming out here the rest of my life.
Head coach at Parkview High School. Chan, welcome to it.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Honored
We
to
are
be here.
so excited to dive in. You just told us 20 straight years of ABCA for you.
Yeah, so I've been
Why do
here
you
as a
love
young
it
one, that's for
here?
sure. Well, you just learn from the best, and I can remember, being an assistant coach, coming to this, and then turning into the head coach and just learning different ideas from just great coaches. No matter if it's pro, college, high school, and then just the camaraderie of being able to hang out at night and really getting the nuts and bolts of the game and teaching the inside part of the game that inside interval, the things. And so it's just a great opportunity to network, great opportunity to learn, and just you just see a bunch of great baseball guys here.
I'm going to ask you to go back in the memory bank, because if you look out, you can't really walk that far. It's a sea of people, right? Coaches, baseball community members, whoever it may be. So go back in the memory bank for me, maybe an early time that you had a chance to talk to somebody that you were looking forward to meeting.
Well, I was that young assistant that I just kind of shut up and sat back in the back of the room and just learned, to be honest with you. And so anybody that would bring knowledge and anybody that would just sit down and talk to me, I can remember talking to Coach Burtman before from LSU. I remember talking to, different college guys, just trying to get ideas. And then the whole thing of creating the network of older retired high school coaches and learning what made them successful. And, those type of things are just, immeasurable.
So 20 years of coming here and really trying to learn a lot. And then I'm sure you've adapted it, twisted it, experience as well. You have that on top of coming here and learning. What are some of those things that you've took and implemented, and how have you kind of tied that in and made it your own? Because you're obviously very successful now, and you put in the work. So, just share some of that knowledge that you've learned throughout the years.
Yeah, I think the best thing is different philosophies, different, the game is played a little bit different out west than it is down south, and being involved with Team USA and things like that. I've learned the small ball game through different people out west that I didn't really grow up in the South. We were more power hitters and that type deal and so the small ball thing became very apparent to me that was important in the game as a younger coach. And I think that's something that I've learned more about here and just implementing that. The other thing is just the philosophy of really in the locker room of, creating the right culture, creating the right measurements of success, and delegating that and allowing my coaches on my staff to coach, understanding that I'm just one guy. I wouldn't be anything without those guys. And, that's the way I was brought up in this world, that here, this is your job, go do it. And, that part for me is I bring the entire staff here, and it's just an unbelievable time for us to even sit in a hotel room last night talking the game and just, talking about our kids, talking about the upcoming year, what's going to be successful, what do we got to work on. Last year we lost in the state championship, and we had a 4.5-hour rain delay. Well, I didn't do a good job during that. So, I came to this thing to talk to people about, how they handled adversity of a state championship of something that, like that. And so I didn't do a good job as a head coach during that 4.5-hour rain delay, and it ended up beating us, to be honest with you.
I mean, you still made it to the state championship. Like, rain delays and these things happen. You're being quite hard on yourself. But take us through that story a little bit. What did you learn? What do you think you didn't do right? Like, how did that game go? Because I didn't see that game in particular, but tell us the story. I want to hear about this.
Well, it's just it was a thing that we got to the park and we had to sit there. We went out to start the game, and then, we were playing at Truist where the Braves play, and so the grounds crew came out and said we got to cover. And, it was just a thing that the little area they put us in, little concrete floors, little chairs, it's just wasn't a great atmosphere for 4.5 hours. And kids got real edgy. And, in my opinion, I just didn't do a good job of being a leader during that 4.5-hour rain delay to make sure that we were focused when we came back. Because when we came back, I felt like we didn't play our best game that we normally do.
And that's fair. Things change when you sit and get stiff on concrete. I'm not sure, high school, and I know you'll have a lot more, I guess, stuff than we used to have. But I would have just been in my metal spikes, maybe taking them off, sitting, like getting stiff. Like that's kind of impossible. But the randomness that is the weather, and especially in Atlanta, like there's always
it just totally took us out of our routine. And we're baseball guys are all about reps and routine, and it just totally took us out of our routine to even from a pregame standpoint, and then we got through pregame, and then we had to sit for, and then we had to go back, and then we had to go back in for another hour, and it's just up and downs. And like I said, I just didn't feel like we did a great job as a staff and myself as a head coach of controlling that.
Well, I'm wondering what's evolved in you to have that mindset, because I could imagine maybe earlier in your career you might not have shouldered that, or you might have put the blame in multiple places, but you're completely shouldering that. So what's evolved with you?
My thing is, all the wins are about the kids, all the losses about me. And so
I see you taking the brunt of that.
And so, that's my deal. When we win games, I think it's all about the kids, and that's the way it should be, and all about our community. And when we lose, I did something, and I need to find out what I didn't do that day to the best of my ability to help that team win. And so, those are things that I'm pretty hard on myself about, making sure that we can control the controllables. All right. And then the adversity part, we practice so hard, the speed of the game type deal all the time that, I want our kids that by the time we get to the game, it's easy because we practice so much. And so, those are just little details we're fine-tuning all year. And like I said, the routine part of it got thrown off that day, and it just really hurt us, to be honest with you.
All right, so despite that, though, I know there has to have been a moment that you did enjoy, that you did feel like this is a really great moment. I don't know if it had to do with your son or maybe outside of that, but is there a moment that you've got to keep locked in your memory bank?
Yeah, just making a state championship for a lot of programs is great.
Yeah.
I think that each year that we've been fortunate to win it, and last year was the first time we've ever been in a state championship and lost in 10 times. Okay. And so that was kind of shoulder, and myself being the second head coach ever at Parkview in 48 years, I felt like that was on me, and I didn't do a good enough job for the community. That's all right. And so, but the whole son part, being in Truist, watching my son, get 4 hits that day and this, that, whatever. Yeah, that part's awesome, but at the same time, it's hard to say sometimes, but he's just another player on the team when you're in that game, even though it's your son, but, it was cool. I can remember the moment very, very well. His first AB, their student section yelling daddy ball to my son and coach's kid and all that type of stuff, and
wow.
And he got a double the first time up, and just kind of got on first, and kind of did this to him, and that type of deal.
That.
So,
I love
that. That part obviously was cool, and we had a ton of good players last year, and in actuality, last year's senior class and this junior class, this 24 class, I've been with them all since they were 4. Because of my son playing with them.
Right.
And so special groups, a lot of memories over, since, 16 years type deal with them. Yeah. And so, that part's cool. And they all play for my travel team called Meridian, our program that is 8U all the way to 14U. It's a feeder system into our high school. And so we have relationships since, 4, 8-year-olds, that type deal. And so, it gets to be pretty special from that standpoint.
Just along those lines, really quick, because we've been talking a lot about development at the youth level, how important it is right now, how it's changed so much, that you have so much more, right? And for you to have known these kids and watched them grow, but specifically Cade, I wanted to ask about him and wearing that coach's hat, but also wearing the dad hat. Is there a conversation? Because I remember my conversations when I played softball with my dad and how important they were. And at the time, I was still learning constructive criticism, and I wasn't quite sure of what it meant and what it meant for me. But eventually I got there, and I realized how valuable those conversations were. Is there one that stands out to you that you've had with Cade?
I think I'll tell you more of the journey of Cade and Chan Brown. We grew, he grew up in the dugout as a week old. He was in the dugout, and at Parkview High School. And so, obviously baseball's been a special thing to our family the entire time. Got, fast forward to high school. As a ninth grader, he played varsity, but was more of a defensive replacement when Schlossnagle went in to close. So he didn't have a huge role, but he did, to the later game, defensive guy. Well, moving to the sophomore year, there was one vivid day that we had to actually cancel practice because it was like 10 degrees outside on a Saturday, and he said, "Dad, let's go hit." And I said, "Okay." And he had started off his sophomore year like 13 for 20, 3 home runs, like 3 doubles, like really going off. And all of a sudden, about 2 days ahead of time, I was watching him hit BP, and it looked like he's never swung before. And so that day in the cage, it was a thing that I swung. I mean, I threw a couple pitches. He took some bad swings. I said, "I'm not going to, throw anymore. What's going on?" He goes, "You just don't get it." I said, "What do I not get?" He said, "You just don't get the pressure that I have on me inside the school of being Chan Brown's kid and knowing that, I'm supposed to do this because I'm your kid." And so that sophomore year for about 10 games after that, it was rough. And finally my wife had to, sit both of us down and said, "This is enough. Quit bringing it home." And so it was a learning point for me as a coach and as a dad, obviously. And since that point, we've had an unbelievable relationship with this game. And, last summer going through the summer circuit and going to PG All-American game and, all those. I mean, it was just such a cool experience because I was his dad at that point. And so it's been a fun ride, and then being able to experience that with my youngest son, Becca, that's a freshman now, going with us.
That's
and so
right.
having both of them in the program right now is really special.
So 2 questions that there's a couple things, but first and foremost, you talked about practice and you want to make it more difficult than the game. These are things that I'm really interested in. What is the process to make practice more difficult, more challenging for the game to give your kids, every tool they can to succeed?
I think the biggest thing we do is put kids on clocks. And we do a lot of stopwatch stuff, and we do time period deals. We'll do what we call D drills, which is fundamental. The catchers go with their catching coach, infield guide go with their infield coach, and outfield. And during those 20 minutes, we're going to go as hard as we can at a speed that's going to be a lot different than most people practice at. It's not really laid back. I was a football coach also growing up and, in this world of coaching. And so I learned a lot about those little interval time periods of going really hard and then stop. And you think about baseball, that 3-second process of in between each pitch, got to be focused, take a deep breath. You got to be focused. And so we tried as much as possible to, just the speed of the game. We're going to try to play faster. We're going to try to put a lot of pressure on other teams. And, kind of like what Todd said a little ago, it's about us. Like we don't ever do scouting reports until playoffs, and it's just about us getting better each day. And so, it's all about fundamental baseball for us. It's all about throwing strikes first, defense, and then offense. And then, we're just trying to make sure that we do everything and the little things the right way.
Chan, thank you so much for your time. Good luck this season. We appreciate you and your family. I had a blast getting to know Cade this year.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you for having me today. Great to meet you.
Absolutely. Chan Brown, head coach at Parkview, with us on the desk. When we come back, a special interview on the trade floor. We look forward to that. We'll be right back on Perfect Game TV.
Oh, yeah. Been waiting for this one.
You?
I'm Maverick Gardner from Moore, Oklahoma.
You?
Cole Gossett, Moore, Oklahoma.
You?
Silas Foster from Oklahoma.
Now turn around, please. Turn around. Here's what I love about this. You want to be recruited? This is who you're looking at. Look at the GPA. You got a 4.5, a 3.4, 3.0, 4.5. Whose idea was this? Who wants to tell me whose idea this was?
Our coach. Yeah, it was our coach's.
Have you heard from coaches? Have people commented on the shirts?
A lot of people commented.
I love this. I was so excited that I saw you. Let's go. Okay, you guys, God bless you. Good luck. We're going to see you all in the big leagues, college baseball someday. I got to do a tour, though, okay? I'm so glad I saw them. I'm so excited. I saw them walking through the lobby. So what you're going to see is everything. I mean, everything that could touch the game of baseball up and down these aisles. Bat grips, ways to take in the game, technology. 350 companies represented here. And they're trying to do business. I mean, they're trying to, help players reach their dreams. They're trying to reach their own dreams by growing their business. You got the championship rings right here, Terry. You got the championship rings. Why wouldn't you want to understand what that is? And so for Perfect Game to be a presence here, it's a big deal because they see more players, more teams than anybody in the big. Yes, good to see you. Anybody in the big leagues. And so for that to occur, Perfect Game is a natural fit here, understandably so. So you got bats, you got Louisville Slugger here, uniforms here. Over here, you got technology back behind you. You got the sports attack. I think Danny Wexelman was here with the hit tracks yesterday. And by the way, if I might tell you, I'm Danny Wexelman. I just thought I'd do that. Just leave it with that. You've got to have your badge on. Can I be Danny? Is that okay? Anyway, here's where PG's home is. We'll walk you through. I'm not much of a guy who likes to, kiss up to the company. So I've had a lot of jobs. I probably should think about that. But this is the PG setup. And what's interesting about it, when you come through here, so, there's business being done. You got serious business being done here. You got uniforms here. PG provides it all. That's the interesting thing. So we see all these other folks, rings and signs and uniforms. We do it all. That's the best part. And you come through here. Be careful here. Watch your step. Got my mentor, Brad Clement, here. This is live, so keep it clean. Keep it clean, Brad. What goes on inside of here?
Oh, boy, there's a ton of meetings. A lot of them are scheduled and more are not. And it's just invigorating to see the interest from the whole ecosystem, including the media, that PG has developed and created and grown. It's an exciting place.
Okay, you didn't know this was live. Real quick, look over here. That's the boss, CEO, doing business right there. He's going to come on later on in the day. This is the guy who's building everything. Look at him. He's doing business, making money right now. Doing business, growing the game. Come on. So like, this isn't just some minor league booth. This goes all the way down to this end. All the way down. You got a meeting here. You got a meeting here. You got my old summer ball coach. Kurt, come here. Come here real quick. No, come here right now. You come here right now. This is what happens. This is what happens at these events. I played summer baseball for this man like 50 years ago in Elkhart, Kansas. Introduce yourself, Kurt Kelly.
Kurt Kelly. I'm now at Oklahoma Western. I coached Darren. When he didn't pitch, I let him go up in the booth to do his radio show, so I started his career.
You did. I was such a bad player, you said, you better get up there and start announcing.
That's right.
This is what this event is, right here. That's what this event is. That's what makes it so great. I've used up way too much time, I know. Danny Wexelman, Hunter Pence are with Jimmy Ousting. And by the way, I'm Danny Wexelman. Take it away, guys.
All right, Darren Sutton. I don't know who's having more fun right now, Darren on the trade floor or us here on the set. Perfect Game here live from Dallas, ABCA, the 80th edition. The trade floor is the place to be because you can run around like a little kid. You see your friends. You see a lot of cool stuff in there. I know you're desperate to get in there, Hunter Pence, but we're going to keep you up on the desk for a little bit longer. As Darren said, Jimmy Ousting joining us now, founder of Oustingers Baseball. Welcome to it.
Thanks. This is awesome.
This is your first ABCA, which is hard to believe because you've obviously been in and around the game for so long, but just your first impressions. It's also Hunter's first ABCA. What do you think?
It's big. It's like Christmas Day for a baseball fan. If my son was here, he would be not leaving the trade floor for several days. But it's awesome. It's great to see all the coaches here. It's a tough time of year for being in Florida. The college kids are home, and the pro guys are home getting workouts in, and the kids are out of school. So to get up and get to the coaches convention is tough.
Yeah.
But this is a really, really neat atmosphere for the coaches.
Have you seen a lot of people that you already know or familiar faces walking around?
I mean, I literally came up the escalator and saw Dayton Moore this morning, who was with the Braves when I was with the Braves. He was the assistant GM. So just walked up and said hello, and just kind of reminiscing over old times, and that was 20 years ago. So I'm an old guy now.
I mean, yeah, there's such a wealth of knowledge here, and as a fellow first timer, I am definitely blown away, like of what's happening here. All the friendly faces. I actually just ran into one of my old teammates from junior college back in 2002, I believe. So it is madness. So I got to ask you, Ousting, you said 12 years you've been coaching now?
12 years. Started the academy in 08. My academy in 08 started doing the travel ball circuit in like 10 or 11. So yeah, right at 12 years now.
And it's changed a lot. And this is something that I'm genuinely interested in, because I understand college. I've talked to a lot of those coaches. Obviously, major leagues, minor leagues, went through it, lived it, still in it. How is youth baseball, high school baseball? What is the state of it right now, and like the good and the bad, if you can?
I think the great thing is I think the numbers are starting to increase of kids wanting to continue to play the game. When I first, in the earlier 2000s, I felt like we were starting to lose a generation of kids. And I don't know if that was because the games were coming on later, or if the kids weren't involved in the game as much, or things of that nature. But now I feel like there's more of an influx of kids, and they're staying longer. They're wanting to be a part of it longer. And I think, the new rules in the game and at the major league level of just kind of the speed up rules. And I don't know for you, Hunter, but for me, and I know you announced, so you have to. But for me to sit down and watch a full baseball game was really tough for me. I would pick an inning here or there, but my son would sit and watch 4.5 hours of a college baseball game like it was nothing, and he would record another one and watch that after that. But for me, just playing, it was like, man, can we not speed things up here? But the new rules, I think, are outstanding. I think it's going to be a great thing for kids, and an hour and 45-minute game. How awesome is that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's refreshing, because you're seeing more action. A lot of times for me with the 4.5-hour games, you just kind of put it on in the background and you like check in here and there. But now you actually you want to watch because there's things happening. And I think we didn't even realize how much lull and how lully it was. So I am excited about that. You're right. It is refreshing. It is revitalizing. So is that implemented as well in the high school? Do y'all have clocks? It seems kind of hard. But
it's not. Obviously, it's at the college level, it's implemented. I think the umpire has it on his waistband or something like that. It's not in a high school level or at the travel ball setting. The tough thing is in the travel ball world, there's time limits. Otherwise, it would just go on forever. But I do think that that's something, looking at golf, I think they've had this initiative for a really long time trying to speed up the game, and they've, got it going at the very young ages now. And I think that's going to happen in baseball as well. I think it's going to filter down. I think kids are going to speed up. I think the game's going to kind of happen at a faster pace, and that's going to be great for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm curious on that note, is how does that change the way that you operate, change the way you coach, change the way that you communicate, especially, we know kids are, they're looking at their phones, they want things right away. It's that instant gratification right now, that scenario. So does that change the way you do anything?
I think the communication level from coach to player has changed with, the introduction of cell phones, smartphones, kids being on their phone nonstop. I think for us as coaches, I've listened to a couple of the other coaches come up this morning, and, the pace of my practice, I've always been a guy that's like, hey, let's keep the pace going, and then the speed of the game is the speed of the game. Some days the game is fast and some days the game is slow. Some days guys are throwing strikes and some days guys aren't. Some days the strike zone's big, some days the strike zone's small. Those things are going to kind of always evolve and change, but if we can keep the pace of our practice moving, at a certain level, like the kids feed off of that energy of that practice, and they hustle on, hustle off, get to their positions, they're ready for the next play to be made. I think that kind of again goes back to kind of just keeping the game interesting for kids. I think we lose kids because of like the interest level. Like, man, I can go kick a soccer ball, up and down a field, which for me may not be that exciting. For me, sitting on the sidelines and watching and kind of understanding the strategy of, pitch selection and location and moving an infielder or things like that, that's super interesting to me. But most kids, that's like, oh gosh, that's boring. So if we can keep the pace, I think that we keep the involvement of the kid there. And that's what I try to do in practice.
That's amazing. And Jim, I do want to dive in because we have, you've been, you pitched for a long time in the major leagues, 9 seasons. You're now coaching it for a while, and I'm sure pitching and everything in baseball has evolved a lot since then. Take us through a little bit of your journey and like starting out as a pitching coach from a player. I think they're 2 totally different skill sets to coach and to do, and then how it's evolved and where you're at today.
Yeah, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, was drafted by the Braves, was fortunate enough to be in the Braves system when, Maddox and Glavine and Smoltz and Avery and, all those
Some
guys
of the
were
greats
there.
ever.
Leo Mazzoni was there, and just to kind of get to a big league camp and not necessarily make it to the big leagues with the Braves, but to kind of sit back and just watch big league camp happen and just kind of see how those guys went about their business. I was talking to a kid the other day, and, John Smoltz, one of his sayings was, don't pitch until you have to. It'd be nice to sit back and just say, hey, throw 94, 95, and that's quote unquote not getting all of you into it. And then you get guys on second and third with 1 out, and you need that strikeout, and then you can run it up to 98 to 100. It'd be nice to do that all the time, but your advantage. I think when I first got to the big leagues, scouting reports, obviously, that was a thing in the big leagues. In the minor leagues, it wasn't necessarily a thing. So you just kind of pitched your way. You got to the big leagues, and it's like, okay, now you have all this influx of information, and it's almost overwhelming. You forget, hey, my strength is throwing a fastball up and in on a righty and then throwing a changeup down and away. Like, that's what, that was successful for me. Well, you get to the big leagues, and it's like, hey, we want you to throw all fastballs away to this guy. And it's almost like you lose your identity a little bit, and you have to kind of know, you have to have that inner strength to know, hey, these are my strengths and I got to stick with them. Sometimes that's a learning process for sure.
I wonder too, we talk a lot about this, like when you have kids on your team and you mention those names, obviously the legends, they're aware of, but I don't know how much they're consuming on a day-to-day. As you're talking about, your son can watch for a long time, but I don't know how many day after day games these kids are watching, right? They just love to play it. Sometimes they're not necessarily watching, but you must have these different philosophies that you've picked up or all these different notes and nuggets. Is there a most frequently asked question these kids are dying to know from you?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think a lot of my kids say, hey, Coach, why do you have so many rules? I'm kind of a stickler for, hey, all of our kids from 8-year-old to 18 years old, every single kid wears their pants the same way. They wear stirrups. They have the same color belt on. They wear their hat straight. All those things that I kind of feel like was instilled in me as a player that kind of molded who I am as a coach.
Yeah.
I kind of try to still instill into kids. I think a little bit off tangent from your question, but I think we lose, baseball ends one day, I went into coaching, Hunter's, coaching and announcing and all the things that, our bodies break down and we end, at some point you're going to get off the field and, there's life after baseball and what does that look like? And, for an 8-year-old kid, the percentages of that kid making a high school team is not great. And then beyond that is much smaller. But, if they walk out of our program and they're done playing, it's nice to kind of see those guys come back and, hey, Coach, how you doing? Or, 10 years down the road, you have a kid that you coached. I coached a kid 10 years ago. He's married with a kid now, and he walks in the door over Christmas break, and it's like, hey, Coach, how you doing? You were hard on me then, but, man, I really understand why you were that way now. And that, to me, that's coaching. That's life. We're trying to get these kids to grow up and be men one day. And I think we lose a little bit of that in the travel ball world. We practice. Our program practices. We practice, I wouldn't say a ton, from what I am used to, but we practice more than probably everybody else in the country, which is just who we are as a program. But I think that's what makes us who we are. All of our kids are local kids within 20 miles of each other. Obviously, Coach Petty's going to come up here, and he's got kids on the Canes from everywhere, and that's awesome. It's just that's not how we go about our travel ball process and program. So it works different for different people, and that's what works for our program, to kind of have that knit group of kids. We're practicing right now, and we have 8-year-olds practicing with 14-year-olds. Awesome. And our 14-year-olds are learning how to be leaders to an 8-year-old, and our 8-year-old is looking up to that 14-year-old going, wow, I want to be like you one day. And he's only 5 or 6 years away from that. So I think that's important to kind of feel that gel, that family feel in a program.
I think that's been a common theme, to be honest, all morning long, which makes me feel good, because you want the state of the game to be in good hands. You want those kids to be taken care of, and practice and caring and all of those things. That's been a common theme. So you are right on track with that. Jimmy, we are so grateful for your time and excited for the Oustingers and everything that's coming up this year.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Do not go anywhere. We have an entire day here on Perfect Game TV. Hunter Pence, my co-host Darren Sutton, is going to be coming up in a little bit. That's Jimmy Ousting of the Oustingers baseball. We got a special guest coming up, and then President and CEO of the Canes, Jeff Petty, will join us right here on Perfect Game TV.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait for this one.
Four-time All-Star, two-time World Series champ. And we got Jeff Petty on the set, president, CEO of Canes Baseball. I'm so excited because you guys were just sharing a story. We're trying to figure out if Hunter hit 3 home runs in a spring training game, and your grandpa was there. Is that the story?
Yeah, so my grandfather was a diehard Braves fan, and he didn't get to go to spring training. And when I got out of college, I took him, I believe, in '06, and we went to see the Braves play the Astros when you guys were in Kissimmee. And I know you hit at least 2 homers that night. And you made a big impression on my grandfather. That's all he talked about on the way home was Hunter Pence. So.
Well, I definitely don't remember any of the homers. I remember all the strikeouts and the double plays and the grind. But the wind, it must have been blowing out. And, sometimes in these spring training games, people don't know this, but teams will be like, we're only going to throw fastballs today, or we're only going to throw changeups. So, some of these spring training games can be a little bit iffy because teams are working and building up and doing things, but I'll take it. Every now and then I snuck one out. How are you doing today? How are you enjoying the Coaches Association?
There's 10,000 coaches here.
Now it's 10,000? It keeps growing.
Yeah,
oh, my gosh.
I think it's a lot of people here. It's a place to be if you're a baseball coach. And it's a sign of the new year. This baseball season's coming up, and it's an exciting place to be.
15 years for you coming to this event, and we've had a wide range. This is Hunter's first.
Okay.
I think it's my third. We had someone up here 28. So wide range. I think that was Tracy Smith. By the way, Tracy Smith said maybe
love
20.
Coach Smith.
Yes, we love Coach Smith, of course. So 15 years, and I saw you last year. We had an amazing conversation. If we go back maybe to years 1 or 2, I love to know, was there someone you got to meet or a conversation you had that stuck with you?
I just remember the first ABCA convention, Tim Corbin spoke.
Oh.
And I just was glued to everything he said. And that just honestly made me sit in there the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't feel like I could miss anything just because of his talk. And there's just so many people here that can contribute to your growth as a coach. Mm-hmm. Like in the exhibit hall or in the clinics. It's just a can't miss place if you're a baseball coach.
I mean, if you listen to Tim Corbin at all, you're already a better human. Just first and foremost, he's one of the greatest speakers and greatest interviews, and I think he's made all of us, humanity, better just by coaching baseball. So it doesn't surprise me that if you saw that, you're like, whoa, because Corbin, I mean, it's a high fiber, cut from the finest. And I think that's been kind of a common theme is like, this isn't just, we're wanting to win and we're wanting to master our craft and we're wanting to put the best team out there. And we're finding out that usually the best way to do that is to be good people, be good coaches, be good teammates, and teach the players the principles of being a good member of the community. Would you say that that's sort of what you kind of find out here?
I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, he's a tough act to follow, right? But he's definitely
the best.
Someone to aspire to be as a leader and being around young people. But like you said, I mean, if we're not developing kids, especially in today's society with everything going on, that's probably our highest calling as a coach right now, not the wins and the losses. But like you said, I mean, if we put those priorities in line, the wins will take care of themselves. In my feelings.
Yeah, and you've collected a lot of them. There was an interesting article here, though, Jeff, and you had mentioned kind of the state of where youth baseball is, and it's changed so much. And this is the one part that I'm learning the most about here because I've been connected to college, professional, minor leagues, but I haven't been connected that much to the high school. Obviously, they run the Hunter Pence Baseball Academy, but that's just like, some of my team, and they own it. They just use my name. So what is the state? I love it. It seems like you get, there's levels to it. I don't completely understand, but I feel like you had this great article talking about we need to make the best players play against each other to get better so that they can prepare, for the next levels, and you can work your way up. Is that sort of how it is, and what's going good and what can be improved upon?
Yeah, I think we're in a better state right now as the top 10% play, like the top 100, top 200 players in the country really playing against each other. I think if, it's my findings, if you're a top 100 player and you're playing against a kid that's an average high school player, that player doesn't really get a lot out of that, and really the other kid doesn't either, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we're doing a better job of getting in those events and having the better teams play against each other, which then prepares them for college baseball or professional baseball. So I think what could get better is just more practice. There's a lot of games just happening, lineups getting thrown on the wall. Sometimes, unfortunately, because there's so many teams, you'll see a 2 o'clock game, and someone like you, I'm sure, would really not like to see this type of thing. But, I mean, a 2 o'clock game, there's kids rolling, or not taking any swings, not stretching properly, things like that. That's something that I don't know how you govern that, Hunter, but that's something that I would like to definitely see get better.
Yeah, and I think it's person to person, like, organization to organization, holding a certain standard. Because, you can't roll in 30 minutes before a game. And I remember being 8 or 9 years old and we had batting practice before the game. So it's definitely possible you can make it happen. So tell us a little bit about just your coaching career in general and how it has changed. Because, like, the world has changed. Kids are on their phones. I don't know necessarily how we combat that, how we balance that. But when you first started coaching to now would be like, what would you tell young you if you could right now?
Oh man, what a great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah, 2005 when I got in, I remember we had a player, he's actually here at the convention, he's a college coach now, Seth Manus.
Oh, that's
and
great.
He was, every time we ran him out, it was pitch efficiency. He would win almost every time he pitched. And I remember talking to Billy Godwin at East Carolina, and I talked to Seth, and this kid's a senior in high school. And I'm like, where do you want to go to college? I mean, those conversations don't happen now, right? Senior in high school, at that ability level, those kids are committing way earlier now, right? So I remember talking to Billy and almost just like, Billy, you've got to take this kid, right? And he ended up taking him, and he's the winningest pitcher in East Carolina history. Nowadays, I mean, with video, social media, all of that didn't exist back then. Kids are almost being over-recruited now. And then the transfer portal, it's just a very different situation where, like, back then you really had to pick up the phone a lot more and really had to work for your players. Now, if you have good players, you don't, as a coach, honestly have to work as hard because of perfect game, the networking, just a tweet goes out and 60,000 people see it or whatever. I mean, that didn't exist back then.
A lot more access.
Yes, so it's easier to be found now.
Actually,
that makes sense.
But so what would you tell younger you, though?
I would tell younger you that it's going to change a lot.
Be ready to change. You don't know it all.
The recruiting part of this is going to change more so than I could even imagine. That's probably what I would tell me then. I mean, it's just so different 18 years later. It's like hard to fathom,
Yeah.
I've got a few along those lines.
Jump in, Danny, jump in.
So PJ Morlando, number one player in his class, we saw him in Jupiter.
Yep.
And when we think about Jupiter and the World Wood Bat, we don't always see the top kids coming, right? A lot of kids are shut down at that point or for whatever reason, they're not there. And I talked to PJ, and he said, I'm coming. There's no way that I'm missing this event. And it's speaking a little bit to, I think, the evolution of the player, the evolution of the game, and the way that kids are built. What stands out about what PJ's done and how he's done something and he is doing things that should be the standard?
Yeah, so a lot of times nowadays, unfortunately, these prospects, they're getting 8 advisors early in the process, and some of these advisors are advising them not to play baseball, which I don't understand that. In PJ's case, he never runs from playing baseball. He's not going to hide, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, number one player in the country, and you're saying there's a trend of kids not coming to that event, which to me, that makes no sense. It's a high level of competition. There's scouts everywhere, right? But in PJ's mind, he just got back from playing for Team USA.
Yeah.
He was over there for like 2 weeks and lost some weight and stuff, but there was no chance that he wasn't coming to the event. And I just think that scouts need to recognize that that's a kid that wants to play baseball. And that's important, obviously. You get drafted or what. And I did not play professionally, but I've been around all these guys all these years. I mean, that's what he's going to walk into, right? He's going to be playing baseball every single day, right? So the fact that he's showing everybody that he wants to play is a big deal.
That means a lot to me.
There's a thread. Actually, I think you'll like this a lot. And it has to do with competition and being competitive. And that I'm not saying that major leaguers aren't competitive and that they're not trying their very best, but I do feel like there's a separator of having that competitive gene and competing at every single thing that you do. And I do feel like the highest caliber players at the major league level, at their core, are competitive, right? And very competitive. And I feel like that's something we're seeing more. We're saying that word more, and it's being incorporated a little bit more. Do you feel that way for your teams and the guys who are coming through the Canes?
Yeah, so we put it out there, I mean, early on. I mean, we're trying to compile the best players we can, and we are trying to compete. We're trying to win. Some people say things about that. We don't run from that, hide from that. When we get together for the summer, we have intention to win, and we don't really care, who their dad is or what they're ranked or whatever. You're going to be rewarded with good play.
Yeah.
The batting order will determine 15 games in. Well, if you lead our team in strikeouts, even though you're ranked number one, from your state or what have you, you might not be in the lineup. And we've shown that to our players, and our players believe in that process. And I think they come to us really realizing that that's what we want to do. We want to compete, and we want to win. We want to have a winning culture.
One more for me, and it has to do with being here at ABCA, right? And the evolution for you. But how do you take bits and pieces here, or what have you taken from here and then applied to the Canes and to what you're doing specifically?
Yeah, so our team in the summer, we always come in a couple days early, and we have a bus, and the reason we got the bus was parents have to work.
Yeah.
So we don't want that to be the root cause of them not coming 25 days on the road. So we have the transportation take care of, and we always rent a field off-site. So if we play at 2 o'clock, we'll meet as a team around 10, and we'll go charter to an off-site, and we'll practice. And we've taken all our ground balls. We've gotten all our fly ball reads. We've taken BP on the field. We have a strength coach. We have an infield coach, a hitting coach, a pitching coach. We really overstaffed this team in some people's eyes, but we're trying to get them ready for what's next, whether it be college or pro. So there's an investment there, with that part of it.
It's a big investment, and I think this is, you are our case in point of the reason why younger kids are coming to professional ball, to college ball, way more prepared to succeed, and on the same level with older kids. You can do a lot of catch up by learning these principles. So I want to dive in a little bit of how fitness and training has evolved over the years, where you're at right now. Having this overstaffed, semi-professional high school team. What is that? What does that look like for your kids?
Yeah, so we've had our strength coach for the last 6 years has been Josh Wright. He has a baseball-specific gym in Southern California, and we have another guy coming on this summer. He's not going to come on the road with us. But I think it's important, we're on the road for 25 days this summer. If those guys don't work out, that's a problem.
They're falling behind.
Yeah, and I think that to give the guys a chance to be able to work out on the road and have that option. And some guys have never done that. They've never played and lifted at 17 years old at the same time. The pitchers is a big thing. If a pitcher's not available that day, or if he's not slated to throw in 3 days, for him to sit around for 3 days on the road, that's a complete waste of that kid's time. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to staff your staff appropriately to give those kids, what they need. Again, they're all aspiring to play professional baseball.
Yeah.
So that's just important to us, and we take that extremely serious.
Well, tell us a little bit about some of the kids you have right now. Obviously, she mentioned Morlando, who everyone knows. There's a couple other names here, Will Sanford, Dante Nori. These guys, Noah Franco, they all first-team all-tourney for the PG class of 2024. But talk to us a little bit about how everyone's developing and just kind of, the excitement of this time of year.
Yeah, so Nori, when he came to us last summer, we knew he was an elite runner. We didn't know if he was going to really, honestly, the question was, is he going to hit? But my God, the kid put the ball in play all summer, and we played elite arms.
So fun to watch.
And he's just a great kid. He's always smiling.
Yeah.
And his dad, I don't know if you've seen the clips on him. He's the assistant coach for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
And he's hilarious. And, they weren't in season this summer, so he was on the road with us, and it was a delight to be around him as well. But I think he has put himself in a position to maybe have his name called in the first round. And I think that there was a lot of question marks coming into last season, but in y'all's events last year, he showed that he could really perform. I'm excited about our team coming up. You mentioned Noah Franco. I mean, I don't know what that kid's going to do. Is he going to pitch? Is he going to hit? I mean, he's
special.
I don't know. I mean, if you're a scout, I mean, what are you going to draft that kid as? It's an interesting one. And
well, I actually think, that's
well, I was
going
to mention that, but I just didn't want to say that.
Aren't there more opportunities? I do feel like we're seeing more and more two-way guys actually have a legit chance of doing that at a higher level. Don't you think?
He's shown it. It's and I think it's hard to do both, and I've seen that over the years. I mean, at that level, right?
No doubt.
I mean, it's one thing to be a really good high school hitter. We had a kid, Grant Holmes, years ago. I mean, he was an unbelievable high school hitter, but he got drafted as a pitcher in the first round. But I think Noah legitimately has a chance to do both at that level. But I'm excited about our team coming up this summer. Coy James, Dean Moss, some of those guys. It's gonna be fun.
You good?
I'm good. You got anything else?
I'm good. I'm so grateful for your time always and excited about what you guys have coming down the pipeline. But for you to be here and get a chance to be with everybody, you good?
I got one.
Of course, I knew it was coming.
Well, I took a peek here.
I knew. What do you got?
And, I mean, obviously I didn't know this, but now I do. Corbin Carroll, getting to watch what he did last year. He came through your organization. What did that mean to you? What was that like? And then you can wrap. Sorry, Danny, to cut off your wrap.
No, it meant a lot. I got to go to the World Series and actually sit with his family, and he's just such a first-class kid and comes from such a first-class family. And to see him have the success that he had this year, really watching him and Volpe do what they did. I mean, they hit 2 and 3 in our order. As young as they are, it really was fun to watch.
And what was he like as a kid? Because you look at Corbin Carroll, obviously crazy athlete, but he doesn't jump off as the physical specimen. This is kind of the beauty of our sport, I think, is that all shapes and sizes can master your body and master the game. But tell us a little bit about him, his work ethic, because he seems to electrify and everyone just says so much about him.
In high school, it was very laser line focused mentality. Nothing else really mattered. The training and the baseball was what he wanted to do, ultra competitive. The power was there, the speed was there. I mean, we were seeing him leg out ground balls to second base in high school. So you could see that playing, right? But to see it happening, unfolding at the highest level, I mean, that's very rewarding to see. And again, the person, the kind of guy he is, that you like to see those guys have success.
I had a blast watching him in your organization. Had a blast watching him in high school, and even more so now on the big league stage. Jeff Petty, we appreciate you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. All right, we got a lot coming your way. A full afternoon slate. Jeff Petty rounding out our morning session here live in Dallas at the American Baseball Coaches Association. We're going to be back on Perfect Game TV. Darren Sutton, Hunter Pence will be here 2:30 Eastern. That's 1:30 Central Time. Jim Schlossnagle of Texas A&M, the head coach, will lead things off. We will be back this afternoon. Thanks for spending your morning with us on Perfect Game TV live from Dallas.
I never let myself believe that I was gonna be in the big leagues. I always worked for it until I achieved it. Back in Puerto Rico, I remember my dad would hit me ground balls from the top of the hill. That forced me to always move my feet. There were no limits to where I could go, so I played with no limits.